Chapter 235 The Devout Lamb. Inside the cockpit. The howling wind surged into the cockpit. One pilot lost and the other, under mental control, was unable to operate normally, causing the entire aircraft to jolt violently. And Qingyu furrowed his brows slightly, swinging his frost longsword to fend off two Shirchigui Tong, retreating to the shattered glass. He pressed his palm against the broken edge, and the frost sealed the gap in the windshield, finally halting the raging wind inside the cockpit. Swish. In that brief moment, three Shirchigui Tong lunged at him, grinning menacingly as they repeatedly stabbed their short knives into his body. Blood splattered onto Qingyu's glasses, but his fair face showed no sign of pain. Instead, he became even more exhilarated. With a lightning-fast swing of his frost longsword, he decapitated one of the Shirchigui Tong. The weak points are at the neck and tailbone. The blood-stained lenses reflected a glimmer of white light, and a fleeting grayness in his eyes allowed him to instantly discern the Shirchigui Tong's vulnerabilities. Sword light flowed, cold air surged. His black trench coat was already soaked in blood, yet his movements showed no signs of slowing, like an unwearied killing machine. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at the time. 3:32 a.m. The tavern owner was still outside the plane battling Lin Chia. If nothing unexpected happened, the ritual should not be able to continue. What no one noticed was that within the crystal ball that had rolled into the corner of the cockpit, a thumb-sized insect began to emit a faint red glow. Meanwhile, in first class, several passengers who had been knocked unconscious by Qingyu slowly opened their eyes, mechanically standing up and walking toward one wall of the first-class cabin. Their eyes also emitted a faint red glow. A young man approached the wall, dully raising his hands, while the others held down his limbs, lifting his body off the ground, his feet leaving the floor. A woman walked to the crew's work area, took out a small knife from a drawer, returned to first class, crouched down, and began to slice the young man's fingers one by one with the knife. The young man was pinned against the wall, expressionless as he stared ahead, like a devout lamb. There were no cries of pain, no wails, no screams. The entire first-class cabin was enveloped in silence. On the ground, a black van screeched to a halt at the entrance of the community. Hong Ying leaped down easily from the driver's seat, while Wu Xiangnan and Si Xiaonan wore expressions of impending doom, swaying as they moved forward. Wu Xiangnan looked up at the plane circling low in the sky, confirmed the time and said, 3:33 a.m., the time for the ritual to begin. Hong Ying sighed, unsure how things were going on Chia's side. Fortunately, he had held off the tavern owner. Leng Xian's voice came through the earpiece. Hong Ying was taken aback. How do you know? Standing on the rooftop, Leng Xian slowly lowered his binoculars as they were fighting on the plane. I know they are on the plane. The plane up there. The three of them were stunned, suddenly looking up. The low-flying plane buzzed as it passed overhead, and at the top of the plane, it seemed two figures were battling in the wind. Hong Ying's mouth dropped open, his eyes filled with shock. What the hell? This is too intense, right? Under the pitch-black sky, two figures stood atop the plane, the city below shimmering with lights, like a neon monster crawling on the earth. The roaring sound of the plane's engines was deafening, like a giant beast's roar. The howling wind whipped the dark red cloak, and Lin Chia wielded dual blades, their surfaces soaked in blood. With a casual swing, the blood clinging to the blades was swept away by the wind, falling into the silent city below. Opposite him, the tavern owner's neck wound was rapidly healing. This was the sixth slash Lin Chia had delivered. Prior to this, the tavern owner had already experienced the sensation of decapitation 5 times. Despite his usual strong mental fortitude, his face was now pale, and his gaze toward Lin Chia was filled with fear. Being decapitated 6 times by the same person, the calm face of this youth had become the tavern owner's nightmare. Damn it, damn it. The tavern owner, seeing Lin Chia step forward, instinctively took a few steps back, his eyes filled with anger and terror as he raised his gun and pulled the trigger again. He no longer dared to engage Lin Chia in close combat. Even though he possessed the elusive ghost threads, and prided himself on being a close combat expert in front of Lin Chia, all of that seemed like a joke. Click. No bullet fired from the gun as if it had jammed, producing a strange sound. Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly, the darkness around him deepening. In an instant, the gun in the tavern owner's hand disintegrated, as if an invisible hand had swiftly dismantled all its components. Once within the realm of the abyss of darkness, any firearm was as fragile as paper to Lin Chia, unable to inflict any harm on him. Damn! The tavern owner cursed, discarding the gun handle. Lin Chia shook his head inwardly. In terms of mental strength, the tavern owner should be at the Chuan realm, but ultimately he was just an accidental awakener of the forbidden abyss, a fish that slipped through the net hidden among the populace. His cunning schemes were impressive, but both his combat skills and mentality were worlds apart from a true Chuan realm practitioner. Without the ghost threads, he would be nothing more than a live target that could regenerate infinitely, lacking any offensive capability. With the ghost threads, he could barely be considered to have stepped into the Chuan realm in terms of combat danger, but those invisible threads posed no threat to Lin Chia whatsoever. Thus he could only be thoroughly dominated by Lin Chia, who was a full realm below him. Being thoroughly dominated was one thing, killing the opponent was not so easy. Under the terrified gaze of the tavern owner, Lin Chia sheathed his left-hand dagger. Under the other's puzzled stare, he reached out and pressed in the air, causing a brilliant summoning array to appear out of nowhere. As the magical light faded, a small mummy appeared before Lin Chia, nearly blown off the plane by the wind upon its arrival, but Lin Chia caught it just in time. The little mummy, realizing it was at such a high altitude, trembled and quickly clung to Lin Chia's back, wrapping its arms tightly around his neck, determined not to let go. Lin Chia smiled wryly as he patted its head, then turned to look at the tavern owner, his smile gradually fading. "Tell me, how many kilograms of explosives would it take to blow you to smithereens?" Chapter 236, Jumping Machine. Hearing this, the tavern owner's heart skipped a beat, a vague sense of foreboding creeping in. At that moment, Lin Chia, carrying Mumu, was already darting towards him like lightning. The tavern owner gritted his teeth, a thread tightly embedded in the bottom of his foot. Then he suddenly leaped backward, jumping off the top of the plane and plummeting down towards the city. Lin Chia instantly understood his intention, a cold smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Mumu. Hey." A bandage shot out from Mumu's palm, wrapping around the plane's fuselage, tightly binding it. After tugging on the bandage to confirm its strength, Lin Chia leaped off the plane with Mumu on his back. The wind howled. Lin Chia, carrying Mumu, fell freely through the air, a strong sense of weightlessness filling his mind, but it didn't affect him. He had undergone similar training at the training camp. The bandage in Mumu's hand was rapidly extending as if it were endless. Despite her small size, the bandage seemed to never run out. Under the black night sky, two figures jumped from the plane, descending towards the city below. Meanwhile, on the ground, they jumped off the plane. Hong Ying squinted, clearly seeing this scene, completely stunned. Not just him, everyone in Team 136 witnessed this, shocked by Lin Chia's reckless act. Leng Xian put down his binoculars and calmly said, "Don't worry, he tied something like a rope on the plane, he should be fine." Chin Mai sighed, shaking his head with a bitter smile. "This kid is too crazy." In the night sky, the tavern owner, free-falling, panicked when he saw Lin Chia following him. He had intended to jump off the plane to evade Lin Chia's attack, and with the mysterious thread, he could return to the top of the plane at any time. But he never expected that madman would jump down too. However, he quickly calmed down. Lin Chia jumped later than him. Under the same gravitational acceleration, it was impossible for the other to catch up. Just as this thought crossed his mind, Mumu's back suddenly expanded, the bandage loosening to reveal two flamethrowers. Boom! Raging flames erupted from Mumu's back, propelling Lin Chia forward like a booster, rapidly closing the distance to the tavern owner. Tavern owner. In the tavern owner's horrified gaze, Lin Chia, accelerating downwards, slightly raised the corners of his mouth, his hands resting on the knife handles at his waist, his eyes shining with a brilliant golden light. Clay. The twin blades were drawn. Between the bright city and the dark sky, a dark red figure with flamethrowers on its back streaked across the horizon, like a blinding flame descending from the heavens. Immediately after, two dazzling arcs of blade light burst forth in midair. The tavern owner's head was once again thrown up, an invisible thread connecting his head and neck. Just as he was about to reattach them, a small hand wrapped in bandages suddenly reached out and grabbed his hair. Another small hand frantically tied explosives around his neck. Once everything was done, Lin Chia, with Mumu and the flamethrower, quickly distanced himself from the tavern owner. The next moment, a deafening explosion erupted in mid-air, the blinding firelight shining like a radiant sun in the night sky, burning fiercely for a long time before finally dimming. Chunks of charred flesh fell from the sky, with that much explosive packed into his body, bursting from the inside out. Even if he had super regeneration at the Sea Realm, he couldn't possibly survive. To be safe, Lin Chia scanned the area with his mental power, confirming there were no other life signals before Mumu began retracting the bandage, and the two approached the plane in the sky again. The tavern owner was dead, but the matter was not over. Halfway through the flight, Lin Chia suddenly remembered something and looked down at the city below. The mysterious thread should have been blown to the ground with the tavern owner's explosion. Lin Chia sighed helplessly. Although it wasn't a powerful forbidden item, it was quite useful in certain situations. Unfortunately, finding an invisible thread in a bustling city was as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. Most likely it would be impossible to retrieve. Lin Chia shook his head, not thinking further, and quickly approached the plane. In the cockpit, Qingyu expressionlessly swung a sword, killing the last of the Shiji ghost children. Then the other ghost children's corpses in the cockpit began to vanish, leaving only the one before him devoid of any life. So this is the real body. Qingyu crouched down with interest, starting to examine the corpse of the Shiji ghost child, his eyes glowing with a gray light. At that moment, a sound of knocking on the glass came, and Qingyu turned to see Lin Chia outside the plane, using the knife handle to shatter the ice layer on the glass and climbing in from the outside. Reluctantly, Qingyu had to seal the gap with ice again and turned to look at Lin Chia. "Did you take care of that, owner?" "I did." Lin Chia nodded, "But it's a pity about that forbidden item." "Forbidden item?" Lin Chia briefly described it, and Qingyu's eyes lit up with unusual interest. "As long as it's still in Songnan City, finding it is just a matter of time." Qingyu seemed very interested in the mysterious thread, narrowing his eyes as he spoke. "Now is not the time to discuss this. There's still one mysterious entity left to deal with, called Belkrand." Lin Chia scanned the cockpit with his mental power and found the crystal in the corner, bending down to retrieve it. The moment he saw the crystal ball, both Qingyu and Lin Chia were taken aback. They noticed that the surface of the crystal ball had developed a crack at some point, and the small insect that had been sealed inside was now nowhere to be found. Qingyu's brow furrowed slightly, a gray light appearing in his eyes as he began to analyze the crystal ball. It was broken from the inside. If nothing unexpected happened, it should have escaped from within. Qingyu turned to Lin Chia. "Didn't you say it was on the verge of death?" It was indeed on the verge of death, barely hanging on. Not to mention breaking the crystal ball from the inside, even surviving was a question. Lin Chia's brow also furrowed. How did it recover in such a short time? The ritual time has passed, it shouldn't. As he spoke, Lin Chia seemed to sense something, his expression suddenly changing. He abruptly pushed open the cockpit door and walked straight into the first-class cabin. There he saw a young man's corpse lying on the ground, his fingers completely missing and blood splattered on one side of the wall. A sharp knife was embedded in his chest. On his corpse, a pale smile still lingered at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 237, Ritual Failure? Not only him but all the other passengers in this first-class cabin lay in pools of blood, their bodies showing no other wounds, as if they had simply fallen asleep with strange smiles on their faces. Qingyu stepped forward, carefully analyzing everyone's condition, and shook her head. "They are all dead. During our battle, the people here must have been mentally controlled to complete a ritual. Only he died from a knife piercing his heart. The others all died from mental strangulation. That bug was sealed in crystal and was dying, yet it could still control so many people." Lin Chia looked at the corpses scattered around and quickly scanned the economy class ahead with his mental power, slowly speaking. "The passengers in the rear cabin are fine. It seems its control has a limited range. Perhaps it sensed the situation was not right and made a desperate move. Even if he killed the last person of the ritual, the strength of the sacrificed souls should be far from enough." Lin Chia pondered. There are only corpses here, and the souls of ordinary people cannot complete the ritual. As Lin Chia's words fell, the entire plane suddenly shook. A strong sense of weightlessness hit, and the plane began to plunge rapidly downward. Lin Chia and Qingyu exchanged glances and spoke simultaneously. It wants to crash this plane. The two quickly rushed into the cockpit, where they saw the only pilot's eyes glowing red as if he had gone mad, controlling the plane to dive rapidly. The dense residential buildings loomed larger before them. Inside the cockpit, Lin Chia and the others could clearly hear the screams coming from the rear cabin. Without hesitation, Lin Chia struck the pilot's neck with his palm, and the latter immediately fainted. Qingyu quickly moved to the control panel and began to operate swiftly. "You can fly a plane?" Lin Chia asked in surprise. "Yes. When did you learn?" 3 seconds ago." A gray light flickered in Qinyu's eyes as she grabbed the control lever and pulled it back with all her strength. On the ground, the spiraling plane suddenly lost control, diving rapidly toward the residential area, and this sudden change made everyone in Team 130's hearts drop. "Captain, it's going to crash into the residential building." Wu Xiangnan's face was extremely serious. The massive fuselage quickly enlarged in everyone's view, the deep engine roar echoing through the sky. If this continued, in no more than 10 seconds, the plane would crash into this residential area. At that time, the casualties would be counted in the thousands. Chen Mai stared intently at the plane before him, his expression increasingly conflicted. He reached out, gently touching a spot on his chest, and slowly spoke. "Xiangnan, what is the plane's number?" "What? The plane's number? It's XXXX. Captain, why are you asking this now?" Wu Xiangnan was filled with confusion, his palms already sweaty from anxiety. Chen Mai did not answer. His fingertips had already touched the corner of something, pulling out a small portion. From its appearance, it was an ancient, yellowed sheepskin scroll. As the sheepskin scroll appeared in the air, it was as if some seal had been lifted, and a strange wave of power emanated from it. At the same time, a mysterious and ethereal gaze descended from the void, hovering above the entire city as if searching for something. 3 seconds until the plane crashes into the residential area. Suddenly, the massive body of the plane adjusted its position in mid-air, sharply changing its dive direction, veering away from the residential area and flying past the rooftops, while the wings on both sides trembled violently, and then the fuselage began to ascend gradually. The strong winds generated by the plane rustled the trees in the community, and the deep engine noise echoed like continuous thunder between the buildings. Countless people were awakened, turning on their room lights, curiously peeking outside. At this moment, the plane had already pulled up its angle, flying steadily toward the night sky. Seeing this scene, everyone in Team 136 breathed a sigh of relief, not knowing when their backs had become soaked with cold sweat. "I thought we were going to die." Hong Ying patted her chest, her face full of lingering fear. Chen Mai stood alone on the rooftop, watching the plane gradually disappear into the sky, letting out a long sigh as he tucked the sheepskin scroll back into his clothing. That ethereal gaze continued to search the city for a while, seemingly not finding its target, and eventually dissipated without a trace. In the cockpit, Lin Chia felt the crisis had finally passed and let out a sigh of relief. "What? Don't you believe me?" Qingyu skillfully operated the plane and glanced at Lin Chia. Qingyu was silent for a moment. "You'd better have the flight attendants make 2 announcements to calm the passengers. Otherwise, once they discover the corpses in first class, it will definitely cause a commotion." Lin Chia nodded in agreement, walked to the flight attendants' rest area, untied a flight attendant's ropes and tape, and after showing his police credentials, she immediately complied. Due to weather conditions, the plane may encounter unstable air currents during the flight. Please fasten your seatbelts and refrain from moving around. The flight attendant's gentle voice echoed in the cabin, soothing some of the agitated passengers, but many still did not believe it. After all, they had just witnessed the plane nearly crash into a building. Was that still called unstable air currents? Lin Chia untied several other flight attendants and instructed them to calm the passengers and inform them that the plane would return in about 10 minutes. Finally, Lin Chia walked over to the slumped Wen Qimao, who looked at him with slightly raised eyebrows. "Did you get it done?" "I don't know." Lin Chia shook his head. "The tavern owner and the 10 Cuts demon child are dead, but the ritual was still completed. I don't know if their souls will be absorbed by the ritual. If so, with one from the river realm, one from the pool realm and the several corpses in first class, It might meet the minimum requirements for the ritual. When Chimo reached out as if wanting to pat Lin Chia's shoulder, but seeing his bloodied palm, he smiled wryly and withdrew it. You've already saved everyone on this plane and in the residential area. That's quite good. As for that mysterious entity from the Western Mist, it should be handled by the Phoenix Special Team. They will take care of the subsequent matters. Lin Chia was taken aback. Has there been a mysterious entity from the Western Mist before? Of course, but they are extremely rare. However, each one is extremely dangerous. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to survive in the mist. Once a mysterious event involving the Western Mist occurs, regardless of its size, it must be handled by the Phoenix team. Chapter 238. Phone. Are you saying that each special team has different functions? Lin Chia asked. That's right, when Chimo nodded. The reason teams 001 to 004 are called special teams is that their functions differ from those of ordinary station teams. For example, Team 004, the masked team, is tasked with hunting down powerful mysteries that appear in certain cities, which local night watch teams cannot handle. In a sense, their mission is the heaviest. Team 003, the Phoenix team, prioritizes cases related to mysteries in the fog outside of Dacia. These mysteries are usually extremely dangerous and the forbidden ruins are highly bizarre. When no new mysteries from outside appear, they also assist the masked team in fulfilling their duties. Team 002, the medium team, is specifically responsible for hunting down extremely dangerous non-mystical targets, such as the gods from the ancient god church and the top few seats of the believers. Lin Chia waited for a long time, but when Chima did not continue, prompting him to ask curiously, what about Team 001? I don't know. That team is very mysterious and rarely appears in the sight of the night watchman. Except for a few high-ranking officials, almost no one knows where they are or what they are doing. It's known that this team hardly recruits externally. The last time they brought in new members was probably over a decade ago. Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. Of course, this so-called functional division is not absolute. It's a matter of priority. Once a team has completed its assigned duties, all teams are required to assist the masked team in eliminating powerful mysteries across Dacia. After a brief chat with Wen Chima, Lin Chia stood up and walked into the passenger cabin, repeatedly scanning every corner of the plane with his mental energy, trying to find traces of Belkrand. He searched the passenger cabin, cargo hold, engines, and even the fuel reserves of the plane, but that little bug seemed to have evaporated into thin air, leaving no clues behind. After several searches, the plane began to descend slowly. Looking out the window, he saw dozens of ambulances parked on the ground, their flashing lights illuminating the dim airport. In the cockpit, Enchinyu piloted the plane like a seasoned pilot, landing smoothly on the ground. Once the plane came to a stop, Xiao Hei first brought the cleanup crew onto the plane to transport all the bodies from the first-class cabin back, rescuing Wen Chima before allowing the passengers to disembark. Lin Chia leaned against the cockpit, watching the passengers exit one by one, while his mental energy continued to carefully search each person in front of him for traces of Belkrand. At that moment, Enchinyu took off his blood-stained black trench coat and walked out of the cockpit wearing a clean white shirt. With his black-rimmed glasses, he looked like an ordinary high school student. Are you really not coming back to the night watchman? You've made a great contribution this time. After you return, the higher-ups won't pursue the matter of you stealing the bodies. You won't have to live underground anymore, Lin Chia said. And Qingyu smiled. The environment of the night watchman doesn't suit me. I'm just a madman who enjoys dissecting corpses. Actually, there are quite a few madmen among the night watchmen. I don't trust them, and Qingyu shook his head. In any case, thank you for not capturing me this time. I owe you a favor. After saying that, he waved goodbye to Lin Chia, blending in with the passengers as he walked off the plane. By the time Lin Chia disembarked, almost all the ambulances had left, the noisy crowd had dispersed, and the entire airport fell silent once again. The lights on the plane turned off, and Lin Chia walked down the empty stairs alone. In the darkness, the stars in the sky were exceptionally bright. He had just taken a couple of steps when a familiar voice called out from nearby. Chia. Lin Chia was taken aback and turned to see 6 figures standing not far away. Hong Ying waved her arms excitedly, shouting at the top of her lungs, Chia, you're amazing. After shouting, she extended her hands, bending her fingers to her head, slightly tilting her body, and playfully made a heart gesture towards Lin Chia. Lin Chia chuckled and walked in her direction. Sister Hongying, keep your voice down, you'll attract the staff. I don't care, Hongying replied nonchalantly, her eyes sparkling. Chia, the way you jumped off the plane and took out the tavern owner was so cool. Can I learn that move? Chen Mai helplessly pulled the excited Hongying back, looking at Lin Chia with admiration in his eyes. This time our team 136 really struck gold. Lin Chia scratched his head, feeling a bit embarrassed. We'll summarize the specific details when we get back, Chen Mai said, tugging at Hongying as they turned to walk away. Let's go, team dismissed. After taking a couple of steps, Chen Mai's phone suddenly rang. He paused, took out his phone and saw a series of asterisks on the screen. His expression grew serious as he released his grip on Hongying. You all get in the car first, I need to take a call. Chen Mai waved to the others and then turned to walk into the darkness. Lin Chia and the others exchanged glances before heading toward the car. Hongying once again wrapped her arms around Lin Chia's neck, persistently asking him to teach her. As Chen Mai walked further away, he glanced back at the others who were joking and playing around, then turned and quietly answered the call. Commander Yi, this is Chen Mai. Chen Mai stood by the dim wall, listening to the voice on the other end of the phone for a long time, his hands tightening more and more. He took a deep breath, slowly closed his eyes and spoke in a hoarse voice. I understand. Outside Songnan City, a horse-drawn carriage sped down the highway, quickly overtaking a Porsche. The young servant driving the carriage glanced back at the Porsche and made a face at it. In this era, a horse-drawn carriage on the highway was enough to turn heads, yet the surrounding drivers seemed oblivious, continuing on their way. The carriage moved like a ghost, becoming semi-ethereal as it passed through a truck, racing by right under everyone's noses, yet no one noticed it. Moreover, even the highway surveillance could not record its presence. Ding-ling-gling. The phone rang and the young servant pulled out his phone, speaking a few words into it with a strange expression. Master, Commander Yi wants us to return. Return? To where? Qin Fuzi's voice came from inside the carriage. Back to Songnan. Just came from there, why go back again? Qin Fuzi sounded somewhat displeased. Hand me the phone, I'll talk to him. The young servant handed the phone to Qin Fuzi, who spoke to the person on the other end for a moment before falling silent. Turn around, back to Songnan. Qin Fuzi's heavy voice came from inside the carriage. Chapter 239, Green Bianhua. In the early hours of today, a powerful typhoon made landfall along the East China Sea coast, with wave heights reaching 30 meters. In just one night, a significant amount of public property along the coast was destroyed. Experts speculate that the waves could exceed 40 meters within 24 hours, which would mark the largest wave disaster in nearly 20 years. The meteorological station has issued a red alert, urging residents along the coast to stay away from the shoreline and to prioritize their personal safety and property. Now, our reporter will continue to provide updates. Suddenly, the television screen switched to the currently popular show, Sound Domain Interview. Wu Xiangnan's expression stiffened as he turned to look at Hongying, who was holding the remote control. What are you looking at me for? Hongying said irritably. Change it back quickly, I want to watch the news. What's so interesting about the news? Isn't it better to watch this handsome host interview Uncle Chenglong? He's the best action actor in Daxia. Hongying said, hands on her hips with a sense of righteousness. I don't want to watch any interviews. Change it back. No way. You. Meanwhile, Leng Xian was expressionlessly maintaining his firearm. Si Xiaonan was yawning while leaning on the table, and when Qimao was sitting next to Lin Chia, feeding food into a bird cage. No one paid attention to the two bickering. They had long since gotten used to it. Is this the Raven of Calamity? Lin Chia examined the pitch-black crow in the cage closely, asking with some confusion. At first glance, this crow looked no different from an ordinary one, except its feathers seemed darker. However, upon closer inspection, one would notice its eyes were completely white, lacking pupils. That's right. When Qimao nodded. As a living forbidden object, this thing is quite rare in Daxia. It is said that only major cities like Shangjing, Guangshan, and Huaihai have the Raven of Calamity stationed. Lin Chia was taken aback. How could there be one in Songnan? This is just an ordinary second-tier city. I don't know. It is said that the captain brought it when he came to Tsangnan for his post. When Chima tossed some bird food into the cage and clapped his hands. This little thing can predict the fate of a city in the short term. If a certain extreme danger or disaster is approaching, it will scream in advance to alert us. Has it ever screamed so far? No, at least since I arrived in Tsangnan, I have never heard it scream. When Chima paused. Let's hope we never hear it. At that moment, Chinmai pushed the office door open and scanned the crowd. Are you bored? The group exchanged glances, somewhat puzzled, but still nodded slightly, while Hong Ying nodded vigorously. Pack up your things. A smile appeared on Chinmai's face. We haven't gone for team building in a long time. Songnan City Park. On the wide, soft green grass, a large red and white checkered picnic blanket was spread out. Hong Ying lay back on it, instantly relaxing and letting out a comfortable sigh. I haven't been camping in a long time. I miss it. Lin Chia sat down beside her, watching the children playing and running in the park, and asked, Sister Hong Ying, did you often go for team building before? Yeah, anyway, we only get busy for a few days each year. When we were bored before, I would drag them out to have fun. Hong Ying sat up, speaking enthusiastically. Not just camping. We also went fishing, had barbecues, watched movies, and played mahjong. Wait, can't we play mahjong at the office too? You don't understand. Playing in a game room has a better atmosphere. Oh. Lin Chia turned to see Chinmai in an apron, focused on the barbecue grill, occasionally sprinkling cumin and chili. His technique is skilled as that of a seasoned barbecue master. Meanwhile, Wu Xiangnan sat next to him, skewering meat onto iron sticks and handing them to Chinmai, working in perfect harmony. Before long, Chinmai brought several plates of skewers to the picnic blanket and asked, somewhat puzzled, Where Wen Qima and Xiaonan? They went to buy drinks, they should be back soon. Hong Ying's eyes were fixed on the skewers in Chinmai's hands as she swallowed hard. As for Leng Xian, never mind, he always likes to disappear, he'll come back on his own. Chinmai shrugged. Then let's eat first. Chinmai placed the fragrant skewers on the ground, and Hong Ying immediately reached for one, biting into it fiercely. Her eyes squinted into a crescent shape. Captain, your cooking skills are amazing. At that moment, when Chima approached from a distance, carrying 2 large bags of drinks, followed by Si Xiaonan who held a green flower. The two sat down on the picnic blanket, and the flower in Si Xiaonan's hand immediately caught Hong Ying's attention. Hey, what kind of flower is this? I've never seen it before. Hong Ying asked curiously. This is a manjasaka, also known as the higanbana. Wu Xiangnan glanced at Hong Ying, looking at her as if she were uncultured. Aren't higanbanas red? This one is green. Hong Ying pointed at the green flower. Who said higanbanas can't be green? Wu Xiangnan patiently explained. Higanbanas come in many colors. For example, the red higanbana symbolizes longing, memories, and the beauty of death. The blue one represents sadness and separation. The black one signifies the unknown darkness, death, and the tumultuous nature of love. And the green one? Green. Wu Xiangnan thought for a moment. Its meaning should be the hope of everlasting life. Chinmai raised his eyebrows slightly. That's a nice meaning. A gentle breeze blew, mixing the fragrance of the grass with the strong aroma of the skewers, enticing everyone to dig in. They sat in a circle on the picnic blanket, eating skewers while chatting and joking. Hong Ying, getting into the spirit of eating, excitedly recounted various embarrassing stories about others, making Si Xiaonan giggle uncontrollably. After they had eaten and drunk their fill, Lin Chia lay back on the blanket, gazing at the fluffy white clouds drifting lazily overhead, feeling more relaxed than ever. All worries seemed to dissipate into thin air. Chinmai wiped his mouth, set down the skewer in his hand, took a deep breath and addressed the group. This time I have an announcement to make. Everyone quieted down, waiting for Chinmai to continue. After a brief silence, Chinmai slowly spoke. I received a notification this morning that the station team in Shangjing has invited our team 136 to go to Shangjing for observation and learning. After today's team building, everyone can go back to pack their bags and prepare to set off for Shangjing tomorrow morning. The group was taken aback. Hong Ying immediately became excited. We're going to Shangjing. That's great. I've wanted to go for a long time. Wu Xiangnan frowned slightly. What will happen to Tsangnan when we leave? What if something mysterious occurs? I'll stay behind to guard. You don't need to worry. Chinmai spoke calmly. After saying that, he looked at Lin Chia. Chia, you can stay with me, right? Chapter 240. Citywide Lockdown. Hearing this, Lin Chia nodded without any hesitation. No problem. When Chima spoke up with some confusion, the team from the capital invited us to observe and learn? Why? We aren't familiar with the team from the capital, and we've never had any interaction. The higher-ups of the Night Watch had been preparing for this observation and learning event for a long time, specifically targeting the Night Watch in second-tier cities. The goal was to enhance the professional skills of the Night Watch in these cities. However, they had been hesitating about which team should be the first to observe. Coincidentally, I know someone in the capital, so they chose our team 136. Chinmai explained seriously to everyone. However, Lin Chia had only joined our team a few days ago, so he wasn't included in the registration earlier. Therefore, the list of participants for this observation only included Wu Xiangnan, Hong Ying, Wen Qima, Ling Xian, and Si Xiaonan. After hearing the explanation, everyone showed expressions of realization. Only Wu Xiangnan continued to frown, lost in thought. How long will the observation last? Hong Ying asked curiously. At least 3 days, at most a week, Chinmai replied with a smile. All expenses incurred during this observation will be reimbursed by the higher-ups. This is an official notice from them, you can take a look. Chinmai handed out a document for everyone to read. The document clearly outlined the observation process and the list of participants, with official seals from the Night Watch and the capital's team in the bottom right corner. When Wu Xiangnan saw the document, his doubts were completely dispelled. He turned to Chinmai and asked, "Will it be a bit tough for you and Chia to stay behind in Tsangnan? Should I stay too?" Chinmai shook his head. The observation team must be led by the vice-captain. That's an order from the higher-ups. You have to go. Wu Xiangnan hesitated for a moment and could only nod helplessly. Chinmai glanced at the time, stood up and said, "All right, you've all eaten enough. Let's head back. Hurry up and pack your things. We leave at 7 tomorrow morning." Early the next morning, Lin Chia and Chinmai sent the 5 of them to the airport. Hong Ying dragged 2 large suitcases, wearing sunglasses, and cheerfully waved to the 2 outside before pushing Wen Qima and the others into security. Lin Chia watched them leave and Chinmai turned to pat his shoulder. "Let's go back." Lin Chia nodded, hesitated for a moment and then spoke up. "Captain, why did you deceive them into going to the capital?" Chinmai's body stiffened and he turned his head awkwardly. "What are you talking about?" "Captain, have you forgotten about my forbidden domain?" Lin Chia said with a wry smile. "This morning, when you were secretly forging documents in the office, it happened to be within my perception range." Chinmai. "Although the documents are fake, their observation and learning are real," Chinmai said helplessly. "I know someone in the capital team. He will take them around for a few days, and once everything is over, they will come back." "Everything will be over?" Lin Chia keenly caught the key point. Chinmai remained silent for a long time, looking into Lin Chia's eyes, and said seriously, "Chia, some things might happen in Tsangnan in the next few days. Just a possibility, although it's a very small one. But if it does happen, it will be a disaster, so you don't want them to get involved in danger?" "Exactly." Chinmai nodded. "Are you wondering why, if there's danger, I still want you to stay behind?" Before Lin Chia could respond, Chinmai continued, "Actually, if possible, I would also like you to leave with them, but for certain reasons you cannot leave Tsangnan. This is an order from the higher-ups." Lin Chia was taken aback and his confusion deepened. "Why can't I leave Tsangnan?" "But don't worry, your safety will also be guaranteed while you stay in Tsangnan," Chinmai added. Although Lin Chia was filled with questions, he knew that even if he asked, he wouldn't get any answers, so he could only follow Chinmai out of the airport terminal. Looking down at the calm and ordinary small city before him, Lin Chia felt a sense of unease for some reason. 300 kilometers away from Tsangnan City, a pitch-black military transport plane flew across the sky, the low rumble of the engine echoing as it headed straight for Tsangnan City. Inside the cabin, 8 figures cloaked in golden capes sat on either side. One refined man held a document in his hand and slowly closed it. "This is the detailed case information regarding the mysterious Balkrand from abroad. Does anyone have any questions? I do. As soon as he finished speaking, a voluptuous blonde woman raised her hand and waved in the air, looking eager to participate. The refined man's gaze completely ignored her, landing on the others instead. He repeated, "So, does anyone have any questions?" "Kong Mama." The woman shot him a fierce glare. "You dare to ignore the captain's question? Do you believe I'll beat you up?" Kong Shang sighed helplessly. "So, Captain, do you have any questions? When we go to eliminate that Baylor, can we bring Lin Chia to our Phoenix team?" the blonde woman asked excitedly. Kong Shang. "Captain, he's already a member of Team 136. It's impossible for him to join us," Kong Shang patiently explained. The blonde woman sighed in disappointment. Suddenly, the military transport plane began to tilt, changing direction and flying back along the path it came from. The members of the Phoenix team were taken aback looking out the window. After confirming that the plane was turning back, they frowned slightly. "What's going on?" The blonde woman unbuckled her seatbelt, stood up and frowned. "Aren't we going to Tsangnan to eliminate the mysterious threat? Why are we turning back?" At that moment, a man in military uniform walked from the cockpit, saluted the group and said in a deep voice, "I'm sorry, we've just received news from the higher-ups. From now on, Tsangnan City is to be cut off from all external contact. Airplanes, trains, buses, private cars, all means of transportation from outside are prohibited from entering Tsangnan." The team members exchanged glances, filled with confusion. Kong Shang also stood up from his seat and said seriously, "We are a special team." "The instructions specifically mentioned," the man replied calmly. "Special teams are no exception." Chapter 241. Divine Prohibition. On the coast of the East China Sea, dark clouds loomed over the entire sky, with chaotic layers of clouds blocking any light from breaking through, and faint flashes of lightning churned within the clouds. Beneath the clouds, the sea roared like a massive black beast, surging up to dozens of meters high, as if it were trying to connect with the clouds above. The howling winds swept along the coastline, uprooting even trees thick enough for several people to embrace, crashing them into the cafe on the other side of the street. Wave after wave crashed onto the shore, pounding against the deserted streets, with splashes that seemed capable of engulfing a skyscraper. The seawater surged into the uneven streets, and the wind and rain enveloped half the city. It was like the end of the world. At this moment, all residents within 5 kilometers of the coastline had evacuated. Caution tape surrounded the coast, but it snapped under the impact of the waves, being swallowed by the sea. Several helicopters flew over the sky, circling around the coastline, while a few men in military uniforms stared intently at the sea, their faces grim. This scene was far more terrifying than those disaster sci-fi movies. One man couldn't help but speak up, wondering what could possibly cause such a large-scale disaster. It had to be something unimaginable, right? Unimaginable? What are you joking about? One person beside him shook his head, knowing that this was not just one city. Dozens of cities along the East China Sea had turned into this ghastly sight. Even Klein couldn't achieve this level. The man seemed to realize something. "Are you saying this is—" At that moment, a serious voice echoed in everyone's earpiece. "Target appeared. Repeat. Target appeared. Everyone, do not act rashly, do not attempt to attack the target, do not do anything unnecessary, maintain radio silence. Everything will be handled by someone." Upon hearing this, everyone held their breath and scanned the coastline. Booming. Suddenly, the Black Sea seemed to boil, churning violently, and in the distance a colossal wave rose up, blocking out the sun. This wave was so high that it reached into the sky, pulling down a corner of the thunderclouds, with swirling lightning mixing with the wave, roaring as it crashed toward the small city before them. If this wave were to fall, the entire city would be instantly reduced to ruins. Everyone in the helicopters swallowed hard, gripping the handles beside them tightly, their knuckles turning white, their hearts racing. Ding! At that moment, a clear sound of a sword ringing came from afar, instantly drowning out the massive low roar of the waves. When this sound rang out, the entire world seemed to fall into a dead silence. Then the overwhelming wave suddenly hesitated, and in the next moment, it was forcefully severed at the waist, as if an invisible sword had sliced through the wave that stretched for over 10 kilometers. The broken wave crashed into the sea, sending up large splashes, and the tremendous sound echoed in the sky like a missile explosion. This catastrophe, capable of destroying a city, was so simply resolved. On the helicopter, everyone's gaze fell upon the figure slowly walking along the coastline. In the tumultuous wind and rain, beneath the hazy city, the ground was littered with fragments of reflections. A young man holding a long sword sheath stepped over the shattered street, his rain-soaked hair naturally drooping down, obscuring his eyes. The fierce wind lifted a corner of his black shirt as he lowered his head, walking step by step toward the sea. The sea surface churned again, and the next moment, an even larger wave surged into the sky, tearing through the thick clouds, roaring as it crashed down toward the earth. The young man still kept his head down, his gaze fixed on his toes, seemingly uninterested in everything outside. His palm gently lifted, once again striking the long sheath in his arms. Ding! The sound of the sword rang out again, and the swirling wave was instantly pierced through, countless sword energies tearing it apart into a rain of fragments, dissipating over the sea. His footsteps did not pause for a moment. Step by step, he reached the coastline and stopped beside a broken tree. He lowered his head, glanced at the rolling sea, and spoke in a voice only he could hear. In the territory of the Great Xia ahead, divine beings are forbidden. His voice was small, almost like a mosquito in the roaring sound of the waves, but at the moment his words fell, the surging sea before him seemed to have been pressed on pause, suddenly freezing in place. Every wave, every splash, every drop of seawater hung suspended in the air. After a moment, the boundless sea suddenly began to surge again, rolling away to both sides. The sea was parted. Between the parted waves, a magnificent figure emerged from the depths of the sea. It was a man with an exotic face, bare-chested, holding a trident in his hand, with long black hair cascading down to his waist. Every movement exuded a terrifying pressure. He stepped onto the surface of the sea and instantly appeared before the young man. The trident struck the ground, causing the entire city to tremble violently, and a deep, majestic voice echoed in the air. "Mortal, do you know who I am?" "Divine Being Code 009, Poseidon, the Sea God." The young man spoke calmly. Poseidon's eyes narrowed slightly. "The proud nation, the faithless people. Divine beings, how dare you number us at will? What credibility do you gods have?" The young man looked at his toes, saying, "Except for the sword, I trust no one." Poseidon gazed at the young man and after a moment slowly spoke. "Interesting, what is your name?" "My name is Zhou Ping." The young man said, "They all call me the Sword Saint." "Zhou Ping." Poseidon spoke calmly. A grand and terrifying pressure suddenly descended, crushing down on Zhou Ping's shoulders, shattering the ground beneath his feet. "I admit, among the mortals I have seen, you are the strongest. But do you really think that with your mere mortal body you can block the steps of the sea god?" "I can give it a try." Zhou Ping replied indifferently. The sword sheath in his arms opened half an inch, and the sound of the sword rang out again. In an instant, a terrifying sword scar appeared on the ground between the two, and at the same time, a sharp sword intent erupted from Zhou Ping, actually contesting Poseidon's divine pressure. Poseidon's expression changed slightly and he spoke in a deep voice. "The Shiva's grudge is an artifact representing absolute destruction. If it falls into the hands of an evil god, it will surely bring disaster. You, the Great Xia, have no gods and cannot protect it. Only by letting me take it back to Olympus can the disaster be avoided. The matters of the Great Xia do not require you Greek gods to worry about." Zhou Ping gently grasped the long sword in the sheath, and his entire demeanor changed. Endless sword energy surged into the sky, and Zhou Ping, who had kept his head lowered, slightly raised it, his indifferent gaze meeting Poseidon's. He slowly spoke. "I will say it one last time, within the territory of the Great Xia, divine beings are forbidden." Chapter 242, Your Takeout Northern Great Xia. The pristine white snow blankets the rolling mountains, and amidst the snowy forests, a few birds are startled, flapping their wings as they soar into the sky. Suddenly, a patch of black begins to spread across the distant sky. In a small town far away, an old man dozing at home inadvertently catches sight of the sky, suddenly sitting up and rubbing his eyes. Old partner. Look at the sky, why is it half day and half night?" "You silly old man, it's broad daylight and you're talking nonsense," the woman scolded from the kitchen. The old man stared blankly at the distant sky, muttering to himself, "Damn it. I've seen a ghost." Under the blackened sky, the birds are enveloped by this darkness, their bodies suddenly jolting, and they fall straight from the air to the ground, lifeless, as if an invisible hand of death has quietly snuffed out their lives. But just a few seconds later, these dead birds begin to twitch, and then astonishingly they stand up again, flapping their wings just as they did in life, flying into the black sky. The darkness continues to spread. In the wilderness, several scattered graveyards among the mountains are shrouded in darkness, and eerie rustling sounds begin to emerge from the dead silence. Bang! A patch of earth suddenly explodes, a heavy coffin lid flying several meters away, and a skeleton, not knowing how long it has been dead, slowly sits up, standing from the coffin with hollow eyes ignited by strange black flames. Bang 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 bang. With a series of sounds, all the corpses in the graveyard have come back to life, their stiff heads turning as they slowly walk towards the distant city, following the direction of the advancing darkness. In this darkness, the line between life and death seems to have vanished. This patch of darkness silently inches toward the city, the scent of death spreading through the air, until it encounters that man. In the pure white snow, a middle-aged man draped in a plain dark red cloak sits there, around 40 years old, with a standard star knife stuck in the snow beside him. He raises his eyes to look at the encroaching darkness in the sky, pulls out a cigarette from his pocket, places it at the corner of his mouth and leisurely lights it. At the moment the flame sparks, a blinding light of Buddha radiates from him, like a surging golden wave crashing into the darkness before him, a faint chant echoing in the air. The darkness is thus blocked in front of him. The man sighs, slowly stands up, draws the star knife beside him, gazes into the distance at the darkness and slowly speaks. "Let me introduce myself. I am Yi Fan, the Supreme Commander of the Night Watchmen of Great Xia." In the sky, a figure emerges from the darkness, like a gentle breeze, gradually blowing towards Yi Fan. At the moment he appears, the 10-mile forest instantly withers, and the pristine white snow seems to be stained with ink, a thick aura of death filling the air. "Respected Yi Fan." The ethereal figure slowly speaks, "I know you. 10 years ago in that divine war, you were shattered by Gaia. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Without destruction there can be no creation. Surviving is also part of my fate." Yi Fan calmly replies, "But you... I didn't expect that after 10 years, you still haven't given up on the Shiva's grudge. That thing is too dangerous. Only Olympus is qualified to guard it." Yi Fan sneers, "Indeed, after the mist descended, only your Greek gods have remained the most intact. Let me guess, besides sacrificing all your citizens, how many of your own gods have you sacrificed? Death god Thanatos, sleep god Hypnos, day goddess Hemera, one of the 5 great primordial gods of Greece, Nyx's offspring. You must have nearly wiped them all out, right?" Yi Fan seems to recall something, smiling as he says, "Oh, by the way, perhaps you still don't know, 6 months ago Nyx appeared in Great Xia. When she fully returns, I wonder if Gaia can withstand her wrath." Upon hearing this, the ethereal figure visibly trembles. Even though Yi Fan cannot see his face, he can sense his horror. "Impossible, that woman is already dead. You are the infamous king of the underworld, Hades. No one in this world understands death better than you," Yi Fan slowly says, "but in this mist, nothing is impossible." The aura of death surrounding Hades thickens, and he glares at Yi Fan, the pressure of the underworld suddenly descending. "Hand over Shiva's grudge, or I will turn this kingdom into my realm of the dead." Hades's voice seems to come from the underworld, chilling and terrifying. "This time, you won't be as lucky as you were 10 years ago." "Is that so?" Yi Fan raises an eyebrow slightly. "You seem to be not as strong as you were 10 years ago." Hades's pupils suddenly constrict. "This sudden mist has brought you gods down from myth to reality. As long as you are within the mist, you will grow weaker and weaker. In 100 years, perhaps you will be no different from mortals. I think Gaia didn't come in person this time just to hide in Olympus and preserve her strength." Yi Fan's lips curl slightly as if, like a dog barely hanging on to life. Boom. The surging aura of the underworld crashes beside Yi Fan, constantly devouring the Buddha light around him. Hades raises his chin, squinting at Yi Fan, and coldly speaks. "Foolish mortal, I will make you understand. gods are always gods. 20 kilometers from Tsangnan City. On a desolate road, a Maybach roars past. In the driver's seat, a thin young man has his window down, resting his left hand on the car door, his fingertips rhythmically tapping to the music, looking quite carefree. At that moment, a figure in a yellow uniform rides an electric bike, keeping pace with him. On the back of that uniform, 4 glaring characters are affixed. Meituan delivery. The carefree young man is taken aback, glancing at the data on his dashboard, then at the delivery man beside him, feeling somewhat confused. His speed has now reached 130 miles per hour. What electric bike can go that fast? Just as he is puzzled, the delivery guy rides with one hand while pulling something from the bag behind him with the other, pulling out a pizza box and handing it to the young man. "Hello, this is your delivery." The young man shakes his head. "Are you crazy? I didn't order any delivery." The delivery guy raises an eyebrow. "This is the trick of the god of mischief, Loki number 018. This is your delivery." Ding ding. The pizza box automatically pops open, revealing a neatly arranged row of explosives inside, glowing with an eerie blue light. The young man's expression instantly stiffens. Chapter 243. The Suppressor. Outside Songnan City, a woman backpacking suddenly stopped, turned her head to look at a certain direction, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. In the next moment, her body began to fluctuate violently, and a few seconds later she transformed into a man draped in a deep green robe. This man had a standard Western face, with slightly curly black hair and deep-set eyes that revealed a hint of amusement. "Another one of my avatars has been killed?" Interesting. He turned his head to gaze at the nearby Songnan City, the smile at the corner of his mouth gradually fading. "Thanks to those fools in Greece for drawing the fire away from me. Otherwise, sneaking in would have taken a lot more effort. But this time the Shiva's grudge will definitely be mine." He took a leisurely step forward, unhurriedly entering Tsangnan. Tsangnan City. Caw. 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 The piercing caw of a crow suddenly echoed in the office, sharp and chilling, making one's scalp tingle. Lin Chier abruptly opened his eyes, and after a brief moment of reaction he quickly scrambled out of bed and rushed out of the room. After Team 136 went to the capital, Lin Chia temporarily stayed in the office, which was convenient and allowed him to look out for Chin Mai, who was also a solitary figure. He dashed into the living room and found Chin Mai already standing in front of the birdcage, his face extremely grim. Inside the cage, the raven of calamity, devoid of pupils, was screeching mournfully, its black feathers starting to fall out one by one, streams of blood seeping from its eyes. Caw. Its cries grew increasingly tragic, but the sound became weaker and weaker. By the time it let out its final cry, its body swayed and collapsed to the ground, showing no signs of life. In the dead silence of the living room, a blood-stained crow feather slowly drifted to the floor. Lin Chia stared blankly at the dead black crow in the cage, then turned to Chin Mai, his voice somewhat hoarse. "Captain, what is this?" Chin Mai remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking. "It seems that the thing I feared the most has indeed happened. Captain." Lin Chia's gaze was more serious than ever. "What exactly happened?" Chin Mai took a deep breath and looked at Lin Chia. "Have you heard of Shiva's grudge?" Shiva's grudge? Lin Chia was taken aback, instantly recalling that during training camp, when he asked Chief Instructor Yuan Gang about Chin Mai's exploits, the latter mentioned this highly dangerous forbidden object. A top-tier forbidden object that carries the essence of the Indian god Shiva and souls, classified as Sequence 008. Its physical form is an ancient sheepskin scroll, and as long as a sufficient price is paid, any concept written on it can be directly erased. Chin Mai briefly introduced it and continued. 10 years ago, a divine war broke out on the borders of the Great Xia, aimed at seizing this super forbidden object that appeared within Great Xia. Later, some events transpired, and after a series of twists and turns, I ended up safeguarding this forbidden object. After hearing this, Lin Chia was momentarily stunned, and then a look of deep shock appeared in his eyes. "Shiva's grudge has been in your hands all along, Captain?" Lin Chia exclaimed in disbelief. "That's right," Chin Mai replied calmly. "The aura of this forbidden object involves the laws of destruction, and only my Black Wuchang can borrow the power of the King of Hell to suppress it. Otherwise, its aura exposed to the outside world is as obvious as the sun in darkness, which could attract the attention of other deities. So, you've suppressed it for 10 years? Chinmay nodded, but over these 10 years its power has been growing while my strength has been waning, making it increasingly difficult to suppress. Because Shiva's grudge inherently carries death energy, it continuously burns my soul upon contact with my skin. I used to be able to hold it down for several hours every day, but since last month, I haven't dared to take it down anymore. A hint of guilt appeared in Chinmay's eyes. A couple of days ago, when a plane was about to crash into a residential area, I peeled off a corner of Shiva's grudge, not expecting the aura to leak out and attract the attention of outer gods. Lin Chia shook his head. This isn't your fault. Even if you hadn't peeled off a corner, it would have broken through your suppression in a few days anyway. Chinmay slowly closed his eyes and fell silent. So what can we do now? Lin Chia pondered for a moment and asked. Wait. This level of battle is not something we can intervene in. What we can do is wait. Chinmay slowly replied. The public will be evacuated by the police. But with so many people in Songnan City, it's impossible to evacuate them all in a short time. If during this time, something really happens in this city, it will be up to us to buy time. Lin Chia nodded heavily. Understood. Do you really think you can escape all of this? No matter how hard you try to forget, you are still you. Come, return to my embrace. In a hotel in the capital, Si Xiaonan suddenly opened her eyes, sitting up in bed, breathing rapidly. Xiaonan. Hong Ying in the adjacent bed saw this and quickly walked over. Did you have another nightmare? Si Xiaonan bit her lip, her face devoid of color, and nodded. I didn't expect you, girl, to be so attached to your bed while sleeping. Hong Ying helplessly patted her head and said softly, how about we go out for a stroll? We only explored half of the street this afternoon. Si Xiaonan buried her head in Hong Ying's embrace, hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The two girls changed their clothes and were just about to head out when there was a knock at the door. Hong Ying opened the door to find Wu Xiangnan standing outside, flanked by Wen Qima and Leng Xian, all with serious expressions. Aren't you guys supposed to be at the massage parlor? Why are you back? Hong Ying asked in confusion. Something feels off. Wu Xiangnan said heavily. As soon as we entered the massage parlor, we heard the front desk saying that all trains and planes to Songnan have been suspended. Suspended? Hong Ying was taken aback. Didn't we just arrive in the capital yesterday? How could they be suspended? I don't know. As soon as we heard this news, we immediately left the massage parlor and went to the airport as well as the train and bus stations. They were indeed gone. When Qima added, whether entering or exiting, all schedules related to Songnan City have been cancelled, as if the city of Songnan had vanished into thin air. I tried calling the captain but found that he was out of service. Wu Xiangnan took a deep breath and said slowly, Songnan is very likely in trouble. Chapter 244. Death Tribulation. The Psychiatric Hospital of the Gods. 1 bamboo. 4 dots. 6 characters. Hula. Li Yifei pushed the mahjong tiles in front of him down with a grin. A Zhu, sitting nearby, had a mournful expression as she handed Li Yifei a crumpled piece of paper with a few large characters written on it. A Zhu's sweeping voucher. Nikes and Merlin also smiled as they handed over their own pieces of paper, which were a Zhu's cooking voucher and a Zhu's bed-warming voucher, respectively. Li Yifei held the 3 vouchers in his hand, grinning at a Zhu as he waved the tickets. A Zhu, tomorrow's sweeping and cooking are all up to you, and by the way, come to my room tonight to warm the bed. A Zhu pouted, feeling wronged. It's clearly 4 people playing mahjong. Why are 3 of the chips my work vouchers? Seniors always give juniors more opportunities to showcase themselves. This is our corporate culture. Li Yifei smirked wickedly, pointing at the other pieces of paper in front of him. And isn't there also my work voucher? If you have the ability, win them back. A Zhu huffed, you're bullying me. Hong Yen came later than I did. Why doesn't she have to do these things? Hong Yen can only do simple tasks right now. Our hospital still relies on you, a Zhu. Li Yifei lounged back in his chair and snapped his fingers at Hong Yen, who was standing behind him. Hong Yen, bring Grandma a cup of cappuccino and bring Senior Merlin a cup of fine by Luo Chun. Hong Yen tilted her head, seemingly not understanding what Li Yifei was saying. Li Yifei sighed. Pour us 3 cups of water. This time Hong Yen understood, turning to head to the kitchen. After a while she returned with 3 cups of water and placed them in front of the 3. Merlin picked up his cup and shook his head. Little Li, why is there no goji berry in this water? This isn't healthy. Li Yifei's mouth twitched slightly. Senior Merlin, our hospital doesn't produce goji berries. Merlin sighed, looking somewhat dejected, casually picked a tile and discarded it. 2 dots. Eat. Li Yifei's eyes lit up. Of course, the one whose eyes also lit up was Hong Yen standing behind. Awoo. Hong Yen bit down on the round table, her silver teeth clenching, and she gnawed off half a piece of the table, the mahjong tiles sliding into her mouth, producing a crisp crunching sound. Ajou. Li Yifei. Merlin. Nikes looked at Hong Yen with a smile in his eyes and kindly said, my granddaughter has a really good bite. Just as Li Yifei was about to say something, a figure in white suddenly appeared at the door. He stood up straight, bowing to Lin Jie, and in unison with Ajou exclaimed, good day, Director. Afterward he gave Hong Yen a knowing glance. Hong Yen, who was still chewing on the mahjong, asterisk, and at hashtag. Lin Jie looked at them oddly. He wasn't in the mood to appreciate the corporate culture that Li Yifei had painstakingly crafted. Instead he walked directly to Merlin and said, Lord Merlin, may I have a word? Merlin raised an eyebrow, nodded and followed Lin Jie into the study. Lord Merlin, I've encountered some issues recently. Lin Jie sat in the chair, carefully choosing his words. You want me to help you with a prophecy? Merlin instantly understood Lin Jie's intention. That's right. Merlin scrutinized Lin Jie for a moment, and after a while his brow furrowed slightly. Even without a prophecy, I can vaguely see that your recent fate trajectory is too dim. What does dim represent? Merlin hesitated for a moment before slowly uttering 2 words. Death omen. Lin Jie frowned. In the words of your great Xia, it means that your calamity is approaching. Merlin continued, using the term calamity is indeed more appropriate, as in a certain sense, it does not necessarily mean death. Lord Merlin, is there a way to break the calamity? Merlin shook his head. If it were someone else, I could indeed offer advice using prophecy, but as I mentioned before, I cannot see your future clearly. Your fate itself is obscured. If I hadn't recently regained some power, I fear I wouldn't even be able to detect this slight sign. Upon hearing this, Lin Jie's expression revealed a sense of inevitability, and he sighed helplessly. At that moment, Merlin's expression suddenly became strange. He looked down at his own body, confusion filling his eyes. Strange. What's wrong? Although I can't see your fate trajectory clearly, it seems my own fate trajectory is about to intersect more closely with yours? Merlin pondered for a long time, uncertainly speaking. Perhaps the key to breaking your calamity is related to me? Lin Jie was taken aback, then his eyes brightened. As the second patient of the psychiatric hospital of the gods, unless he leaves this hospital, Merlin's fate will not affect the outside world. In other words, will Merlin leave this hospital in the near future? Unlike the caregivers in the hospital, patients can only leave by reaching a treatment progress of 50%. Lin Jie looked up at Merlin's treatment progress, which was still at 41%, quite a bit away from 50%. The most crucial point was that his treatment progress hadn't increased at all since 2 months ago. To push the progress bar to 50% in a short time, how easy could that be? Lin Jie frowned as he looked at Merlin, deep in thought. Since the medication has lost its effect on Merlin without any breakthrough progress, it would be difficult to raise the progress by 9% in a short time. But what exactly needs to be done to achieve breakthrough progress? We must start from the root of the illness. Seeing that Lin Jie had fallen into thought, Merlin did not disturb him but quietly stood up and left the study. Thus, Lin Jie sat alone in the study for an entire morning. Since arriving at the psychiatric hospital, it was his first time staying in the hospital for such a long period. After all, when he was in the hospital, to outsiders he was just daydreaming. If he really sat there for a whole morning, people would probably think the kid was foolish. But now, even if he returned to the real world, he could only anxiously await the arrival of calamity. Rather than that, it would be better to work hard here to find a way out. Outside the study, Li Yifei, Ajou, Mo Fong and Hong Yen quietly peeked inside, just about to say something when suddenly the study door swung open. Lin Jie quickly walked out of the study, ignoring the caregivers, and directly approached Merlin, who was dozing in the courtyard. He took a deep breath, stepped on the armrest of the chair and spoke seriously. Merlin, have you found the secret of the real world? How can you still sleep soundly? Chapter 245. Treatment Plan. Hearing this, the 4 caregivers froze in place, and even the pug nearby suddenly jumped up from the ground and quickly ran away, barking as it went. Woof 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 woof. Merlin opened his eyes in confusion, and in the next moment his form twisted violently, transforming in the blink of an eye into that familiar pink starfish. The starfish jumped up from its seat, conjuring a net out of thin air, and shouted excitedly, "SpongeBob! Let's go catch jellyfish!" Meanwhile, 1,000 miles away, black crows circled, lightning danced wildly, and within an ancient and mysterious church, 3 tall thorn thrones stood in the center, grand and imposing, evoking a sense of reverence at just a glance. 2 of the thrones were empty, while on the right throne sat a flamboyant man in a tailcoat, casually, with 3 men shrouded in shadows standing at his feet. "2 fools," the voice from the throne spoke coldly. "You almost failed such a simple task, and 2 of our followers died inexplicably. If it weren't for Xin Qingzhu's timely intervention, that thing would have really fallen into the hands of the night watchman." Below the throne, the 2 men exchanged glances and spoke bitterly. "My lord, it really wasn't our incompetence. It's just that those 2 teammates died too mysteriously. We've already checked thoroughly and there were no signs of enemies nearby." "Shut up," the voice snapped angrily. "You 2 useless idiots, when will you be as reliable as Xin Qingzhu and spare me the trouble?" The 2 immediately lowered their heads, falling silent. Taking a deep breath, the voice slowly continued, "Let's forget about this time. I'll explain the next task in detail, mainly catching jellyfish." Smack. The voice suddenly covered its mouth. The 3 below were taken aback, looking up at the voice in confusion. One of them tentatively asked, Catch jellyfish? Is that a new powerful mystery?" "Fool. I meant, delicious crab roe burgers." The voice's neck turned red with anger. "The 3? My lord, crab roe burgers. What is that?" another asked cautiously. The voice abruptly stood up from the throne, hands clutching its head, and shouted desperately, "Get out! All of you get out! Go find Patrick to catch jelly." Smack. The voice slapped itself, and the terrifying pressure of Klein's realm suddenly descended. The 3 men exchanged glances and immediately retreated toward the church's exit. "Shut up, shut up, shut up! You ghostly thing, you will not control my body." Within the church, the voice's screams could be faintly heard. Xin Qingzhu stepped outside the church, slowly stopping, and turned to look back at the empty church, his eyes narrowing slightly. His mind really is problematic. The psychiatric hospital of the gods. "SpongeBob, when are you coming back to catch jellyfish with me?" The pink starfish was running wildly in the yard at an astonishing speed. Lin Chia squinted his eyes, and in a flash he appeared in front of it, swatting the net out of the starfish's hands and grabbing its body, lifting it into the air. "Let me see what exactly you are," Lin Chia murmured to himself. In the next moment, a brilliant magic circle blossomed in his hand, enveloping the pink starfish entirely. Then Lin Chia extended his other hand into the air, drawing another magic circle. What is the essence of Merlin's illness? Is it the anxiety from not being able to find the real world? Not at all. Anxiety is indeed a problem, but it is not enough to bring Merlin to this place. The root of his illness is the fact that, after anxiety, he transforms into a second personality. The reason Merlin became a pink starfish is simply that his second personality in his mind is a starfish. After taking control of Merlin's body, it subconsciously used transformation magic to change its appearance back to its original form. In a sense, this is invasion by an alternate personality. The best treatment for this is to directly separate this second personality. If it were in the outside world, Lin Chia would have no way to do this, but within this psychiatric hospital his powers would be significantly enhanced. On one hand, he could forcibly sign a summoning contract with the second personality, and on the other hand he could try to summon it outside of Merlin's body. This is the designated summoning magic treatment plan Lin Chia devised after spending the entire morning, aimed at extracting the second personality from Merlin's body. Simple and brutal. As the summoning magic in Lin Chia's hand grew brighter, the pink starfish's body began to twist gradually, slowly transforming back into Merlin's previous form. Effective. Lin Chia's eyes brightened further. Just as half of the pink starfish's body transformed back into Merlin's form, Merlin's body trembled slightly, and a surge of soul power flowed through the pink starfish's body into the magic circle in Lin Chia's hand. Lin Chia's expression changed. Under the impact of this powerful force, the summoning magic in his hand was instantly interrupted. He let out a muffled grunt and staggered back 2 steps, a look of regret in his eyes. The entanglement between the pink starfish and Merlin's soul was too tight. At first it was manageable, but after extracting half of the pink starfish's soul, the remaining half connected to Merlin's soul instinctively retaliated. This was the soul power of a deity. How could Lin Chia suppress it easily? If the pink starfish's personality were likened to a tree, Lin Chia had now chopped off the trunk, leaving the roots deeply embedded in the ground, and he was powerless. But the good news is that Lin Chia's rough treatment did indeed extract half of the pink starfish's soul, causing Merlin's treatment progress to soar to 62%, reaching the standard for the second extraction ability. To continue the treatment, Lin Chia would have to wait until his mental strength was sufficient to match Merlin's. As Lin Chia thought this, he suddenly turned his head in confusion, searching around. Li Yifei and the others quickly ran over to help, asking, "Director, what are you looking for?" Lin Chia frowned, his eyes filled with confusion. "Strange, I clearly extracted half of that starfish's soul, but where did it go?" The ancient god church. Sitting on the thorn throne, the voice, having barely calmed down, slowly opened its eyes. "One day I will make you completely leave my body." It looked down at its hands, whispering coldly. After saying this, it stood up, preparing to walk out of the church. Suddenly, its body trembled, its hands flung open, and it began to run excitedly around the church, 2 completely different voices emerging from its throat. "Patrick! You finally came. Patrick! Haha. SpongeBob. Let's go catch jellyfish." Sure. Let's go catch jellyfish. Ahaha. Hee.